Well, hello and welcome to the WineDown. In this episode, we're talking about software licensing, what it means, how it can affect you, and what you need to do to make sure you're in compliance. So sit back and enjoy.
Welcome to the WineDown, an afternoon podcast where two techie blokes sit down over a bowl of wine and chat about what's happening in the world of tech. Enjoy while Scott and Nick open up about their week in technology.
Gentlemen, hello and welcome to the WineDown. I'm Nick and this is
Scott.
Hello, Scott. How are you?
Good, thank you, Nick.
Now, importantly, where are we? What are we drinking?
We are in the Sofitel. It's a lovely hotel right beside the International Convention Centre, of which we are attending a function.
Well, we're not attending a function right now. We're
Actually,
recording the WineDown.
that's very true. Actually, we've managed to play hooky for one session to run out and quickly record something.
Oh, we're good. It's only Mark Isles. We'll be fine.
I'm sure he'll forgive us.
We've got people in there taking photos of the slides.
And notes, yes, very good. But this is, we tried to get into the champagne room here. So the Sofitel's a lovely new hotel just in Darling Harbour, beside the convention centre. On the third floor, there is a champagne room.
Yeah, but it's not open yet.
It's not open. I'm very depressed.
It's too early. I always feel bad, knocking on the door of a bar to let me in, even if it is 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But there you go.
Yes, anyway.
Cool. What are we drinking, Scott?
So we actually found some lovely Shiraz. It's a cradle Shiraz from the Hilltops area of New South Wales. So it's a drink now sort of thing. I know they say it'll last up to 10 years on the bottle, but I generally think if you buy wine and it lasts 10 years, you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's not bad. Yeah, it's a standard sort of house wine drink. Don't let it go too long, and it's as it says on the bottle, dark purple in colour.
Just dark purple in colour. Now, where's Hilltops? Now I'm asking you.
You're asking me. We were debating this because there's a few regions in New South Wales that actually classify as hilltops, so it's not clear to me which one this is from.
No, it's from one of them.
It's through this is a fairly commercial wine. It's through the Molly's Cradle distribution out of Brookvale. So
now,
yeah.
Unlike wine that you can own and consume, software's a bit different.
Well, I would actually question that. I would say you rent wine.
Yes, okay. Very good.
It only lasts for about an hour and then it's gone.
Yeah, good point. So you rent wine. Software's different, right?
Software is, and we decided today to talk about a remarkably exciting topic, software licensing.
Software licensing, yes.
Okay, now the only thing is there's a few quirks, and there's a lot of changes in this area, a lot of changes in the industry around software licensing as well. We thought it'd be a good thing just to have a bit of a chat about it.
Yeah, I think it's super important as well. There's so many things hitting you as a business owner that you need to be across, and software licensing is one of them. And I've seen too many business owners kind of ignore it, or think it doesn't apply to them, or think it's not a problem. And it kind of it comes back to when you sign up for something, never reading the agreement.
Yes.
And you go and buy a car. I'd actually say how many people read the agreement when they buy a car as well.
Well, or the manual.
Yeah, exactly. But funnily enough, when you buy a car, you're also signing up to a bunch of software licenses.
You are now too.
Software in the car.
Same as like when I bought a dishwasher recently, and it came with an open source agreement attached to the back of it.
Well, that's interesting when you talk about that. So software today, you don't just write a program in kind of a vacuum. Software is built on software, which is built on software, which is built on software. And so what happens is every piece of that software has a different license. And so what we talk about when we talk about software licensing is not just the bit you buy. There's actually licenses all the way underneath it.
But I've got an expectation, though, that if I buy some software of, say, ABC company, that they're going to manage all those other little bits that they use.
You certainly hope so. This can catch people who go and build software themselves.
Right.
So people who build software themselves or hire an offshore developer to build something and try and project manage it, don't think about the fact that this software developer is going to use potentially hundreds of third-party components, all of which have licenses and have implications.
But that's the thing, though, that these days, if you write a bit of software and you need that to communicate to something on the internet, that network layer that does the communication, you can either write that from scratch, in which case you've got to write it, test it, debug it, make sure it works, do you comply with the standards and all that sort of thing. Or for free, you can take a module that's available to use, no charge, that actually works already.
Well, it does. For free is a gnarly one. I think you've got to be really careful. You might think it's free. You might be able to get a copy of it for free. You might even be able to read the source code of it for free, but it still might not be free.
Okay, well, let's come back to that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess what is a license? What is a software license?
Okay, so you never own software. So that's the first step. So that's the first hurdle to get over is you will never, unless you've created it yourself, you never own software. You can obtain a license to software, but you never own it.
When I was a lot younger and bought my first bits of software, and in some respects also like movies and things like that, I thought, I own this now. And technically, no, you don't.
So the first line of any end-user license agreement states, this software is licensed, not sold. Right? That's the very first line. And
to the average person, what does that really mean? I mean,
it means you don't own your software.
Yes.
And there are ways to breach that agreement, which means you won't have access to that software anymore. There's ways to breach that agreement so bad, you'll never have access to that software anymore, which means any data you stored with that software, you also don't have access to anymore.
Well, that's interesting. So if you store your data using I'll say an open source module or a module freely available.
Yep.
And we'll clarify what that means soon.
Yes.
In a certain format that module uses, and you can't use it anymore going forward, then clearly you've got to go and convert your data into some other format that's understood.
Which is potentially not possible.
That's true too. It could be encrypted. It could be
all sorts of things. So you could use, for example, a very popular open source piece of software is called SQLite, which is used for most file formats now. And SQLite allows the software writer to actually encrypt the data using a key of their choice.
Okay.
Now, it could be that you're using some software that uses SQLite, where the software vendor has decided to encrypt the data. You breach your license condition, they won't give you the key.
That's a worry.
You can't crack that. Well, you can, but it'll take up to the heat death of the universe type. Correct.
Yes.
So,
unless you get a nice little computer like the one you bought, in which case it'll take longer.
It'll take longer, yeah.
Okay.
I've been building retro computers this weekend.
Yes.
But
getting back into the more common elements of this, software today, you would either buy it outright as what we call a perpetual license, as in a license you don't have to renew every year or every month.
Yep.
And you would probably pay maintenance on that to keep it up to date. Or there is some sort of a subscription or rental agreement in place.
Yeah, and most software vendors are moving towards the subscription agreement, and there's a real commercial reason for it. They're not just trying to take money from you.
No.
Actually, there's two. If you look at something like Office 365, there's a whole bunch of hosting done by Microsoft to make that software work. But even something else I use a product called Camtasia by TechSmith.
Okay.
That's something I install on my own machine. They don't do any hosting for me. But they do an upgrade every year, and their upgrade has some new features, it has some security fixes, it uses the latest processors. So they're doing a whole bunch of work during the year, and if I subscribe to maintenance, I get that upgrade cheaper.
And look, I think this is what Microsoft kicked off a while ago, where they were losing ground to Google, which was only available on subscription.
Yep.
And because it was available on subscription, it was always the latest version that was available on the cloud.
That evergreen thing's a real important thing. And the number of organizations I've walked into historically which have incredibly dated technology, you're seeing that less and less and less now because people are running Office 365, they're running latest version of Windows. There isn't this kind of huge, oh my God, it's really hard to upgrade. It's just something that just happens.
But if you look at the subscription model, you're getting paid a smaller amount every year, though. So over, say, 10 or 20 years, you would make a lot more. I mean, we're aware of someone we know who actually uses a copy of Excel 2002 because it does what they need, and they've had no need to upgrade it for their particular requirement. But having said that, it's now a 20-year-old bit of software, which they've bought once 20 years ago. They're properly licensed for it, but it was bought 20 years ago, and you think, gee, if they're doing that, they're getting good value for money. Perhaps not the latest features, functions, and support and all those other things, but
it's quite funny. People used to say, people only use 10% of Word or Excel. That's probably still true, but everybody uses a different 10%, and they get a bit stuck when somebody sells them a new Butte dashboardy spreadsheet using the data model Excel, and it suddenly doesn't work, or they send them an OpenXML spreadsheet which doesn't work on Excel 2002.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, you'd say, I only want to do this task with it. There's multi-purpose tools. You're not just doing
Yeah,
one time.
you don't know what's happening later on. I mean, Excel 2002, for example, only have about 64,000 rows of data.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, why do I ever need more than that? Well, you don't until you do.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, look, it's interesting. So the idea with the subscription model, though, also helps the valuation of a company.
Yeah, that's important, but I'm not sure that's as important for customers as it is for people trying to value the company.
It's important for the vendor, because if I'm a vendor and I sell my product once and hope that in 3 years' time you're going to buy the new version when I bring it out,
Yep.
I know I've got a bunch of cash now. I hope that sustains me for 3 years, and I hope you're going to buy the new version.
Yeah, I think Microsoft always said our biggest competition to a new piece of software was the previous version.
That's right, because you may not need all these features and functions that are coming out.
Yep.
But at least if you're subscribing, it's just every month you just keep it there. And, it's only a tiny amount you're paying every month, and all your data is stored and all your other applications and things are stored. So
and it's secure. The technology landscape's evolving all the time. So are the threats all the time. The vendors are playing catch up with those threats and patching things and writing things better and finding ways to do things faster. But we're also finding ways to do things differently. I'll give you an example. There was years ago a piece of software compression called Diffie-Hellman software compression. That was an H.
Yep.
Pieces of software compression. And then the zip format came out. And then PKware had all sorts of things going on with zip. There's now a new form of compression called Brotli. Brotli's a compression algorithm which came out less than 10 years ago. It compresses losslessly so much better than zip ever did.
Wow.
It's amazing. We actually use that now in modern web servers.
Wow.
That reduces the size on the wire of applications significantly. But if you're still using old stuff, you don't get access to that type of technology, which has a real effect.
I actually like the fractal compressions myself, but they're just too heavy for the average machine to handle. Anyway, so Microsoft has had its licensing agreements around for a while, and I think everybody well knows. Used to be on the old box product. That's the little bit of paper in the really tiny 2-point font that was stuck on the envelope on the outside.
The license agreement. When I worked at Microsoft, I had the absolute pleasure of working with the Microsoft licensing team on defining one of those.
Oh wow!
That was an experience.
Yeah, there's a year of your life gone.
Certainly, probably 120, 130 hours.
Wow!
And I wasn't drafting it; I was just answering questions.
Yeah, it's a model. And of course, now when you sign up to new software online, click here to accept the license agreement, and you think, well, where's the license agreement? And there's a little window, it's like four lines high, and then you're trying to scroll through what it could be, like a 1,000-line document in there.
There's actually a legal term for that clicking. It's called a click wrap. And by that, a vendor can prove in court, and it's been tested, that you agreed to that license agreement, whether you read it or not.
Well, that's interesting.
In fact, they did one in the UK, just talking about license agreements, where they got, click here to use this software. And in the license agreement, it says that by signing this license agreement, you agree to give 40 hours of community service.
Oh.
Right? And they just sold it in a certain area in the UK. And they called these people on it and said, you need to come and do your 40 hours of community service. And some of them took the company to court and lost, and they had to do their community service.
Wow. That's amazing.
That's why you read license agreements.
That's very interesting. We've come a long way from the old days of the markets in Hong Kong, where for $2 you can get whatever you wanted.
Exactly. Oh, there's more money to be made doing it the right way.
That's right.
I'm just pulling out there, one of the things which scares me as a parent is I have kids who agree to license agreements all the time.
And,
TikTok or Instagram or whatever. Those all have license agreements. You may find your child becomes, for example, a famous photographer. And all of the photographs they took as kids become part of their portfolio, except they don't.
No.
Because they shared them on Instagram and are now the property of Instagram.
Yes, if you read those, and most people are sort of half aware of this, but would be quite offended, I think, to some degree if they really thought about it. The Facebooks, the Instagrams, the TikToks and whatever, it says, whatever you post, it's theirs.
No, exactly.
And it's theirs forever.
I think you'll find consumer protection's not going to help you a lot there either.
No.
Whereas we've got quite strong consumer protection laws for certain things where you're not paying anything for something. if it's not directly harming you and you've agreed to something,
Yeah. Well, you're
have to deal with it.
not necessarily not paying something though, but you are obtaining a benefit
Yes.
from using the software, regardless of how big or small that benefit is.
So anyway, that's reading it. And we're not lawyers, right? So you should take what we say with a pinch of salt. Go talk to a lawyer. But
Yes,
most lawyers would say
that'll help.
most lawyers you see present go read the agreement. For goodness sake.
I did take an agreement to a lawyer once, and they said, "Okay, which clause are you wishing to talk about?" I said, "Well, no, I was hoping you would read it and tell me what it meant." But
that's going to be incredibly expensive.
Okay, so
let's talk about Microsoft.
Okay.
Microsoft used to be you get the end user license agreement.
yes,
If you were an enterprise, you bought software assurance, which is kind of the maintenance thing.
yes,
If you were a small business or a home user, you'd buy small business server with 5 licenses of something, and that would do you until the point you needed to upgrade.
more or less, yeah. But
Different now.
that's all changing.
Yeah.
There's a thing called NCE, or the New Commerce Experience.
Well, this sounds scary. Just to let you know about Microsoft licensing, there is a qualification called the Masters of Microsoft Licensing. Microsoft licensing is incredibly complex. I've met people at Microsoft who don't understand Microsoft licensing, so there's lots of them. So it's important to be across it, especially if it's something your business relies on.
No, it is. And I do remember having conversations with Microsoft people. You'd ask 5 different people about something, get 5 different answers. They'd all be right.
Yeah.
Which is scary.
Well, you've got to also now be careful about breaching your terms with Microsoft, especially if you're using cloud services, because they can be in their rights to turn you off.
Yeah, I
Not
guess.
that they would.
No, I guess you've got to be realistic. I mean, if you're in there doing something dodgy and nefarious, that sort of makes sense. But if you just really that meant that, and 10 people in a room would agree with you, then yeah, they probably wouldn't.
Well,
but still,
one example: if you're allowing people in Iran to use your Office 365 subscription,
that's an interesting thing we
that
saw
could be
recently.
turned off.
Yes.
And North Korea and
So
a bunch of other
the
places.
countries on the sanctions list.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So look, but this new commerce experience, so the structure of the subscriptions is changing. It used to be you just subscribe and month to month you'd pay and that would be it.
Oh, let me caveat that a little bit because I have read the licensing terms. You actually subscribe for a year. Whenever you
Yes,
subscribe to Office
that is true.
365, you subscribe to
That's
a minimum
true.
year period, but Microsoft didn't enforce
It was
it.
never enforced. That's correct. Yes, I do remember this. So you used to be able to, if you wanted to, you could subscribe for a few months and then turn it off, and they wouldn't come and say, "Hey, where's the other 9 months?" Yeah. So that's happening now.
Now that's led to a bunch of very seasonal organisations, and certainly some I've worked with, where they report their licenses to Microsoft at the lowest point, so they have the fewest licenses. But because of big licensing agreements, they can scale up to as many as they want and scale back down.
Yeah.
And as long as on their true update they have this many, they're absolutely fine. This is one of the things this license agreement is trying to get around.
Yeah, this is a problem. One of them that, well, it's sort of, you can still address it. So you get an option now. You can stay month to month.
Yep.
But it's 20% more than it used to be.
Yep.
You can commit to a year, whether you pay once for the whole year or whether you pay monthly over that year, and you'll be 20% less than the month-to-month price.
And I think in a way that's kind of fair.
Look, I don't actually mind it, but you are right in that there are certain organisations, like if you're running a big ski fields business and all of a sudden during ski season you may have 500 staff, and outside of ski season you've got 20, how do you license the 480 extras for a short period of time?
20% uplift to be licensed correctly.
Yes.
Right? But you're only paying that for half the time.
Yeah.
So you should have, in the old licensing model, you should have actually licensed everyone.
True.
Right?
And this is when we also had other organisations who are global who are saying, well, we're only using the licence during like 9 to 5 in Australia, so as the clock spins around to, say, New York, we'll take those licences and reallocate them in there so that the licence is not actually actively being used in two places at once.
Not a good.
No, I think they got around. That was caught on pretty quickly, and yes, that was follow the sun licensing. Didn't really.
Yeah, that's dodgy as. But
Yeah.
If you're going to spend that much effort circumventing the license, if you're any size of organisation, it's going to cost you more than the license.
I don't think circumvent's fair. I think it's as per like taxes, you are legally entitled to pay the least amount that you have to,
Agreed.
providing you structure your resources accordingly. And this is organisations looking at, well, concurrent users as different to every user. Concurrently, we may only ever have a third, and actually using it at any time.
So it's a question for you, right?
Yeah.
Got my Microsoft licenses.
Okay.
I don't want them anymore. Can I cancel the license agreement?
Oh, I don't know.
I think I know with the Microsoft one you can. You have the right to return to Microsoft any materials you have.
Oh,
and
sorry.
cancel
Actually,
your license.
I know you can up front if you don't agree to the license.
Oh no, you can post as well.
Right.
So you can actually use it, pay your money, etc. You can cancel your license agreement. No money would change hands.
Because I remember there was a court case about this where a person bought a laptop and they wanted to put Linux on it, but the laptop was only available with Windows.
Yep.
They said, well, I don't want Windows.
Yep.
And they said, well, it comes with it. You can't not take it. It's part of the cost of the machine. So when they turn the machine on, it says you must agree to this license agreement. Otherwise, return the box for a refund. And they returned it for a refund. They said, I don't agree.
Yep.
And they got, I think it was about $110 back at the time.
Yep. That's probably OEM Windows.
It was about that, US dollars, and this was a while ago, but that caused an inordinate amount of problems. And really it shouldn't have happened that way, but
No.
it is.
Lots of vendors will now allow you to get OS-less hardware.
And that's the proper way to do it, rather than try to spend like $10,000 of labour working around this one
But
issue.
you've just uncovered one of the ways Microsoft got as big as they did was they tied up all of the vendors to bundle their software in their devices.
Well, clearly, if you're buying a PC for enterprise use,
If you're buying a PC for anything, you've got to have
something on it. Yeah. Yes, as I
Unless
worked
it's
out.
IMSI 8080 and you've got a handcraft in your bootloader. But anyway, that's a whole nother. We'll do it.
Well, when I bought my first Apple II in Hong Kong, actually it was many years
had
ago.
an operating system on it.
So I found out afterwards because I turned it on and I watched the little lights flash. I watched the drive spin and nothing happened. And I sat there for half an hour watching it and nothing happened.
Enter to get the prompt.
No, not a sausage. They didn't supply anything.
Well, Apple's got a built-in. It's got two operating systems built into Apple.
There is a BIOS.
There's
yeah,
Basic,
yes.
and there's the Apple II monitor, which allows you to actually. Anyway, moving on. Moving on.
Okay, so,
yes.
So Microsoft licensing is changing at the moment. So just talk to your license suppliers about what this means and how it affects you.
Yep.
If you want to commit to 1 year terms and 1 year renewals, you can pretty much stay the same price as you were. Otherwise, staying monthly, you're going up 20%.
Yep.
Okay. The alternative, of course, is to just buy something outright.
And less of that's being available, right?
Yeah, it's harder to find now.
It's harder to find.
People want revenue streams. They want to know, sitting on that beach in the sand with the waves rolling in, that hour someone's just paid them $50 to do something.
I think that's disingenuous.
It's a pretty good thought. I don't know.
I think people don't want the liability of you using somebody's software which puts your business at risk.
Right.
Right. So let's say, for example, you bought a ERP system, right? You're running your manufacturing plant, and you never change it. You never upgrade it. You never patch it. You never do any of those things.
Yeah.
And then you go offline because you've been hacked, and there's a patch version that you haven't applied. And we've been to customers where they haven't patched things for ages and ages in that perpetual license. Who's liable? I would imagine you'd have a dig at the software vendor as well. You might not get anywhere, but you could give it a crack.
You can, but I would suggest that your warranty is expired. And if you read the license agreement, there is absolutely no liability for anything.
Oh, so that's another piece that's in most most licenses, which is this product is licensed without any warranty express or implied as for performance, fitness for purpose, blah, blah, blah.
They don't do anything. And especially do not use this if you're in the medical industry, if you've got life-sustaining equipment, if you've... Yeah,
and software has killed people. So I was watching a NDC, is a Worldwide Developers Conference. I was watching the Copenhagen one, and the very last presentation is a developer talking about all of the times software has caused impacts. From the Mariner 1, right, where the software, instead of looking at a smoothed value, somebody made a mistake, and so this number, which was meant to be between 0 and -2 and +2 the whole time on someone's console in mission control, suddenly jumped to 8, and he hit the big red button and blew the spaceship up. Right, because someone had made a software error. To the hedge fund that lost $15 billion position because somebody did a bad software upgrade. Right, and these things just go on and on and on. And obviously, it's life-threatening as well. So you have to read the license agreement.
So legals then?
Yes.
I mean, this is in any legal agreement, the software, whatever. There's one thing I look for up front. That's how to get out of it.
Yep. And you can write
In most
to the
cases, you
vendor
can.
and get
I've
out
seen
the
some agreements recently, though, where you actually cannot cancel the agreement.
Wow, that's interesting.
The vendor can,
But
but
you
there's
can't.
no provision for
Wow.
the end user to cancel the agreement, which means, in theory, you are committing to make payments every year or every whatever in line with the terms until the end of the world.
Wow, that's kind of cool. We should have
Now,
agreements like that.
I don't think any vendor would want to try to enforce that, but the concept is that's a poorly written agreement.
Yes.
Anyway.
But again, people signing it because they're not reading it.
They are. So, I'll say in the old days, but that's not really fair. There's an organisation called
With
a big stick called the Business
Software
Software
Alliance,
Alliance,
the
BSA,
BSA. Yep.
and it's funded by a lot of the larger vendors.
originally funded by Lotus, Microsoft, and Intel, I think.
And Adobe.
Adobe, yes.
Yeah. And they existed to go and find all these organisations that were not correctly licensing or had not paid for their software.
Yep.
And this was a lot easier, 20 years ago or 10 years ago, where there's no license keys, or it's just you just copy the software, and people and they don't understand that that's not.
Well, we built a system back in 2005 when I worked for Dimension Data to do software license management for large enterprises. We used to do enormous software management for those.
And that's it's a complex. It is a complex area.
Oh, it is.
But there's a difference between we thought we'd done the right thing and we've got a software license system in place and it's tracking all these numbers and it seems to not have counted this one properly, sort of thing, an honest error, versus I've gone off and copied this software and put it on 20 machines and only paid for one.
Now, I get it. BSA's still around, though, but I think they're going to hit you if you're a larger enterprise. They're not going to come talking to the littlies like they used to.
I also think the issue is a lot less than it was because things like, for example, Microsoft 365, software is licensed to a user now.
Yes.
Or an account, and if the account is on,
and if you don't pay, they turn it off.
Yeah, it's not licensed anymore. It just doesn't work anymore. So that's that part.
So that's cool. That's the BSA. Now, we've spent a whole bunch of time talking about what we in the industry call COTS, commercial off-the-shelf software.
Yes.
Stuff from Microsoft, stuff from Adobe, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole nother great unwashed marketplace of software, and that's the open source.
Yeah, uncommercial off-the-shelf software.
Well, not necessarily. There's lots of commercial open source.
That's fair too.
Products. But open source is a little bit different in that you can at least, depending on the license agreement, read all the source code. And you can, depending on the license agreement, copy it. And you can, depending on the license agreement, use it for free.
Now, there's a number of these license agreements. The MIT one, I think I like the most.
It's my favourite.
It's because it's like two sentences, one sentence.
It's one sentence.
One sentence.
And it basically says, you're free to do whatever you want, there's no warranty.
Yeah. As in, here it is, use it, don't use it, we don't care. But if it breaks, don't come back to us.
But be careful, though, because even under the MIT license, the software is still copyright.
Oh, yes.
Someone else. Now, you have the right to create derivative work, right? And that's fine, but you can't take that software and go, it's mine, it's mine. You have to change it.
That's right. What you can do, though, is say, I've included that software in my product, and I now have a page at the back of my documentation that says, hey, I've used this bit of software. I'm free to use it, but I'm referencing the author.
You'll find that on your phone. If you go into settings,
that's right.
All these software licenses appear of all the bits they've used.
In a 2-point font.
That's a bit bigger than that. But that's important to think about. If you get software which doesn't include that, then I suggest that's got to be a red flag because everything relies on other stuff. Nobody builds software in a vacuum.
And this is the clause that says you can download all the details here. If you can't do that, send $10 to this address and we'll mail you a physical copy of whatever licenses and things are in use.
So that's the MIT license. This is one of my favourites, but there's lots. There's hundreds of open source licenses. There's one which is a bit gnarly, though.
Yeah. Tell us about that one.
AGPL license.
Okay, what's that?
AGPL license is kind of it's what's known as a copyleft license rather than a copyright license.
Excellent.
It says open source is free, not as in free beer. Right? It's free. You can look at it and you can use it. If you use AGPL software in yours, and you'll use it under an AGPL license, you have to immediately make all of your source open source as well, under the same license.
Ooh.
Right?
So if I find someone's code and it does exactly what I want to do, it's going to save me like thousands of hours of effort. and I see that, so I'm just going to plug that into my application.
If it's AGPL, you immediately have to open source your
I've
software.
got to take all the code I wrote and make it available
Because
open
you'll
source
normally
as well.
find people who license their open source software under the AGPL also have a commercial version.
Ah,
So what you do in that case is you go and pay for the commercial version because it saved you thousands of hours, so it's a business case to do it,
right.
and you pay for it.
Yep.
It's way more expensive if you do that after the fact than at the beginning with a lot of these
Yes,
guys.
that makes sense. Now, what happened with Elasticsearch and Amazon?
It's interesting. So Elasticsearch came out kind of nowhere. It's what they call a NoSQL database, and it suddenly became really useful in a systems management capacity
Okay.
for managing logs, basically, of lots of systems all over the place. And so Amazon decided to use it in their product set, and they liked it so much they did what they forked it. So they created a copy of this open source product, and they changed it. They created a derivative work, and they called it Amazon Elasticsearch, or AWS Elasticsearch.
Right. And they charged for it.
And they charged for it. But
Which-
they were hosting it.
I
They're
get it.
perfectly allowed to
Oh,
charge
yeah,
for it.
they're allowed to charge for
They're
it.
also supporting it, so they're allowed to charge for it.
Yes, but it
Right.
does seem a little off, doesn't it?
Well,
Here's a whole bunch of developers around the world that have contributed all their stuff to keep this free and open source. And some big companies come along and says, "Oh, that looks nice. I'm going to take that and charge for it."
But there's nothing stopping me taking that and building a product
No,
and
I get
charging
it.
for the product. The issue really comes because it was Amazon and because they're really big.
Yeah.
And now Elasticsearch themselves have no route into all those Amazon customers because they're going to use the Amazon one instead. That's really where they got cranky.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
But it is what it is. But yes, that was an interesting one, and it's caused Elasticsearch to strongly consider using the AGPL license themselves.
Because they weren't using that before, were
Yeah, no, they weren't. They're MIT.
they? Yes. So we talked a little bit about license management tools before, but
Yep.
this sort of links into auditing tools. If you don't know what licenses you have, there are tools you can put on your network that will go around and check what's actually installed and what's in use.
So first of all, you should know what you have.
Yeah,
Right.
you should, but
You know, what I'm saying is, if you don't, you'll need to get a tool. If you've got a register that's up to date, you don't need to do anything. You're in a good place.
I would think you would need a tool to do this anyway. There's lots of easy ways to do it. And you can think, like, I've bought 10 copies of Office, I've bought this and this and this, I've got 12 licenses of that, whatever, I don't know. But you don't know that someone's taken a laptop home, installed some software from somewhere, just, click, 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 look, it installed, yes, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, you're now running some software on your network that may not be good.
Or you also got things like someone in a marketing department, for example, will go and subscribe to Trello or Monday.com or one of these online things.
The shadow IT
It
discussion.
suddenly appears in the business. And shadow IT, I think, is cool, except when it comes to licensing.
Mm.
Because then that person paying on their credit card leaves the organization, payments stop, the service gets cut off. The day it stops working, everybody goes, where's this? Because all the alerts have been going to her and she doesn't exist anymore, and suddenly you're in a world of panic.
Now, if you ever wondered, you found a bit of software on the internet, like here's a nice little SaaS application, you go on there and you say, we have lots of users, and you see all these big corporate logos scrolling across the bottom, saying, look at all these companies that are using this software.
Yeah.
And what is that? That means one person in that organization
Has
has
bought
gone
a license
online,
with their credit
and
card,
bought
yep.
even a trial, has gone online and said, I'm going to try this out. And then when you look into the license agreement they agreed to, it says, by signing up to our platform,
We can use your corporate logo.
you agree
Yep.
to allow your corporate logo to be used.
Yep.
And you can be a reference site for us.
So it's important to know what software you're using, to know what reference sites you're
Yeah, and all of a sudden, your own corporate logo appears on someone else's website. And, well, we're not using that. I said, well, actually, one person did once for an hour
and that's enough.
a year ago.
Yep. So, all right. So I've been sitting here, I'm a business owner. I've been listening to all this stuff about licensing. I get there's probably lots I don't know, and there's lots we haven't covered. What should you do? Where do you go from here?
The reality is you need to know what software is in use in your business.
Yep.
So if you're working with a managed service provider, they would likely have some sort of a management agent or bit of software on every machine.
Yep.
It can do, in most cases, license auditing. It can go and find all these applications and report back to the central server, the central management server, and your MSP can produce a report for you that says, here are all the software applications you have in use.
So kind of you guys do that for all of your clients
Yeah.
all the time, right?
Yeah, we produce lists, and and some of the software is going to be things like, it's like Adobe Reader, it's free.
Yep.
for example. Okay, well,
Have
there's
you read
no
the
cost.
license agreement?
I have not.
No, you should.
I've
Let's move
not. I don't have that on my bucket list, I must admit. But it's and there'll be other software, but there'll also be you'll find things like, oh, what's this? What's that? And one could be that's not appropriate for using, in our organisation. Let's get rid of it. Another thing could be, how did we license that? How's it being paid for? Do we understand where this is all coming from? And the paid for bit, as you said before, is important because when it stops working all of a sudden, where's this? Oh, the billing account. Who has the billing account? We don't know. They left. Great. What credit card was it? We don't know. We can't get into the billing account.
So we can't get into the billing account because we're not an admin anymore, and that person's left, and we deleted their email account, so we can't recover the password. So now we have lost a bunch of corporate information and data.
And in the meantime, the business has stopped from using that app. Very annoying.
Absolutely. That was really interesting, Scott. There's lots to think about there.
It is. There's a lot more to this. I mean, in some respects, it's not always the most exciting topic, but you've got to stay on top of this just to have good operational awareness and good business management every now and then.
Cool. Excellent.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you,
Well,
Nick.
that was awesome. If you do like what you've heard or watched, please leave us a like. Make sure you subscribe wherever you found this. And certainly if you'd like us to chat about something, leave a comment and we'll pick up that topic and run it through in the next WineDown. Thank you so much for listening, watching, and being here with us today.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.